Good morning, students. So here is a very quick and simple video on how to apply the post-colonial concepts in your answers. So here I will start from the first slide. Okay, so in your syllabus, there are some key terms: Orient, Occident, hybridity, ambivalence, ethnicity, other. So in the first unit, the notes are given, but here I will just quickly summarize what is the distinction, what is the difference between Orient and Occident. So Orientalism, or the way West perceives the East, was actually given as a discourse, as a discursive representation by Edward Said in his book Orientalism, which was published in 1979. So Orientalism, in that book, he explicated that how the Western media perceives especially Asia and the Middle East. So how the Middle Eastern people, their culture is being represented as something inferior, something mysterious, something as exotic. So, for example, you must have heard, read, or seen visual representation, or maybe textual representation you have read about the Arabian Nights. So, how Arabian Nights has been, adapted into films or cartoons. So that is, this is just one example. So Orients are always considered as inferior, okay, as the inferior other. So Edward Said in his book writes that an Orient is an Orient first and then a man or a human being. So that, the person belonging to a different historical, a different geographical setting, if that community, if that person has different culture, has different, skin color, so that person will be, someone inferior, someone mysterious, someone who is who doesn't belong, who is not accepted. So Orients are represented as they are experienced by the Occident. So Occidents are always considered as a superior race by the Western media. Okay, so here comes the concept of racial conflict. It is based on race. So Geoffrey Chaucer used these terms. Actually, these are Latin terms, Orient and Occident. So he had used these terms, Occidents, Orients, and he was one of those primary authors who started to point out these distinctions. Okay, that this is how an Occident is, or Orients, not in explicit racial context, but the Orient has always been portrayed as, as people belonging to a distinct cultural sphere, and who has an exotic culture. Okay, so this exoticization of culture brings otherization. Now, in which text we can see this Orient and Occident binary distinction? In Diary of a Palestinian Wound by Mahmoud Darwish, you can see that not very clearly, or it is being represented, but you can always bring this theory that how US or the Western media has been sidelining with one community because of certain bilateral motives, because of certain political agendas, and they are always biased towards a certain religious community. Okay, then ambivalence and mimicry. Okay, before I go to ambivalence and mimicry, let me also tell a little bit that Orient and Occident, this theory you can always apply on the, on the impacts of colonization. Okay, that how when colonizers came to rule, how they brought their mentality of othering. Okay, so Orientalism by Edward Said, or the Orient and Occident binary, chiefly, mainly relates to the to the culture of Western media, Western scholarship, Western discourse in representing the Middle East and the Asians. Okay, the whole South Asia, East Asia, okay, Asia. Okay, now come to ambivalence and mimicry. Okay, so I've clubbed these two concepts together. Now, ambivalence, as you already know, that it is an in-between space. So if there are two binaries, let's say light and darkness, so there is always an in-between space of gray. Okay, so twilight sometimes is regarded as an in-between space. Okay, so ambivalence in post-colonial context relates to an in-between space between two binaries. It is there. Neither it belongs to the rigid definition of Western culture, neither it belongs to the uh, crisp and uh, you know boundary defined by boundaries ethnic culture. So a person who has an ambivalent identity always negotiates between the Western culture and the indigenous culture that he she they belong to. Okay, so they always try to negotiate, try to identify their own identity. Where do they belong? Okay, so sometimes being in an ambivalent space is good, sometimes it may act contrary. Okay, it may act against in finding an identity, finding a root. Now, ambivalence also means there could be a loss of ethnicity, a loss of indigeneity, because that person or that community is not belonging to is not belonging to the sectors, to the binary sectors, okay, to any one particular binary sector. So that person or that community has adapted to both the cultures, to both the cultural uh, you know processes of exchange and adaptation. So that community has become hybrid, or that community uh, has a lesser sense of ethnicity, and there will be a loss of cultural identity. Okay, so in post-colonialism, the uh, crisis of language is very much true, or is very much present. There is a crisis of language, there is a crisis of identity, there is a crisis of land, there is a crisis of home. Where do you belong? Where is your home? Okay, so then the concept of diaspora comes up. So diasporic people are actually living in an ambivalent space. Okay, now next comes mimicry. So those who mimic, they are also in an ambivalent space, either knowingly or unknowingly. So I have distinguished between two types of mimicry. So one type of mimicry is performed by the Orient, or the Africans or the colonized people, imbibing the Western culture in a sense of awe, in a sense of, to get accepted into the Western world, into the Western culture, because they are already being hegemonized by the Western culture. They are already getting influenced. They are drawn. They are attracted to the Western culture. So they are mimicking their culture. So in a way, they are going away from their indigeneity. They are going away from their roots, their cultural traditions, their ethnicity, their ethnic identity. They are landing into an ambivalent space through mimicry. And then another type of mimicry where, the Eastern, uh, the people living in the East of the globe, east side of the of the earth or globe, whatever, and the Africans, okay, they are being mimicked by the Western media, by Western discourse, so that their dominance can continue, so that they can be otherized, so that they can always be portrayed as inferior, not up to the mark. Okay. Okay. Now, in which all texts do we find ambivalence and mimicry? A Raisin in the Sun has ambivalence and mimicry both. It has hybridity as well. So, through characters of Benita, Walter Lee Younger, George Murchison, you can, okay, you can develop your answers. You can reason that how ambivalence and mimicry is present in the text. So Benita, starting with Benita's, um, you know, straightening of the hair, then Walter Lee Younger trying to, follow the trajectory of financial development or, success in terms of the Western world. What is success to them? What is, you know, what is like developing yourself. So he wants to own a liquor shop, he wants to do business just to flourish, just to be, wealthy like the Western people. So Walter Lee Younger's dreams and ambitions are very much, fashioned. They are structured as from the perspective, from the point of view of a Westerner. Okay, then George Murchison is almost a Westerner. Okay, he has uh, no attachment to his own indigeneity, on his own uh, indigenous consciousness. He gives Benita gifts that reflect the words that he says to Benita reflects how he is, completely hegemonized by the Western culture, by the wealth of the Western culture. Okay, then ambivalence and hybridity is there in the bus when Kolatkar says, your own divided face in the pair of glasses, or then a sawed off sunbeam. The sunbeam is sawed off, it is divided again. So the metaphors of division the metaphors of division is actually telling that how people's thoughts, people's opinions, they are divided. They are divided because they are not falling in one particular category or within a binary confinement, within a within the two binaries, any one of the opposites. It is actually falling in some in between space. Okay. Then ambivalence and mimicry is there in surfacing. Hmm? Oh, not mimicry, hybridity. Okay, the bus, there is no mimicry, but hybridity and ambivalence, surfacing, ambivalence and hybridity, and also to some extent mimicry is there when the unnamed narrator walks into into the store. Her accent is being mocked by the store people. She finds it extremely difficult to talk in French. she is an indigenous, you know, native. She is an indigenous native of Quebec or Canada. Okay, but because of too much of infiltration, too much of migration from America, and also continuous series of colonization of Canada has segregated, has separated the indigenous people from their own cultural identity. So the whole quest of the unnamed narrator, okay, so the journey she's trying to get us, get to know herself. She's trying to find herself through her missing father, through visiting the rural parts of Quebec, through by visiting the wild parts of Quebec to get a sense of place. To the landscape is also influencing her identity. How? Because she is able to trace back her indigeneity, but she feels that a lot has been changed. She comes across a changed landscape. She comes across these new uh you know uh, new settlers who are very much Americanized. Okay, so she is very much away from her roots, from her indigenous consciousness, and there is a loss of identity. Yes, memories are also there. The past memories keep haunting her. Okay, so surfacing is not exactly a post-colonial text in conventional sense, but it is a post-colonial text because landscape, geographical place, language, they come into a role to depict the narrator's quest of identity. And the narrator being an indigenous Canadian, okay, she being away from Quebec and then coming back, this makes a lot more sense that how she is witnessing the impacts of colonization. Okay. Okay, now yeah, so it's a fragmented culture of Quebec. Yeah, so as Quebec, in even in surfacing when the narrator tells that a random samples of film is being made by her boyfriend Joe and David, her friends. Okay, so as Quebec has been fragmented, her memories are fragmented, her identity is fragmented. Okay, so her body, her memories are very much attached to the uh, place of sense of place, how she is perceiving the place. Okay, now ethnicity. So ethnicity, ethnic identity can be very much witnessed in the poem The Mystic Drum by Gabriel Okara. So the significance of drum, the sound of the drum, the mystical, uh, you know, aspects, the mystical identity of the local, of the natives are associated with the sound of drum, with the sound of nature. And if there is a loss of nature, they not they will they suffer through a loss of identity. So they you know the indigenous people portrayed in the mystic drum, they are very much unified, they were very much unified with nature. But after colonization, okay, the woman who stands behind a tree smiling and not participating, not dancing, okay, just nodding, she represents the sentiments of the colonizers. She represents the power of colonization, that she was so powerful, the colonization, the impact of colonization was so extreme that the colonized, the indigenous people eventually lost their, uh, you know, lost their cultural identity of worshipping nature. They stopped playing the drum, they stopped beating the drum, never as loudly as they used to play, as they used to beat. So it means that they are coming away. They are withdrawing themselves from their cultural identity, from their indigeneity, from their ethnic identity. So ethnicity, sometimes it's very crucial, it's very important in creation of identity, a sense of self, a sense of place. So you see how a sense of self and a sense of place is related. Sometimes when people ask me, where is your native, where is your home, where do you belong, so it's a bit difficult for me to tell because I don't have my native place. We were uh, we were refugees from Bangladesh, and unfortunately, my forefathers did not have that solvency of money to build their own homes after relocating from refugee camps. Okay, so yeah, in The Bus by Arun Kolatkar, you can also witness a sense of ethnic identity when the poet says that he wants to go beyond, or the man who is traveling, the traveler, whether a man or a woman. Okay, so the traveler wants to go beyond the caste mark on the old man's forehead. So this caste mark is again revealing the ethnic consciousness, the ethnic pride that the old man must be having, the pride of his own culture, his own race, his own caste, which leads to otherization of other people apart from him. Okay, here again, it's a very precarious concept, ethnicity. Sometimes ethnicity is very important in creation of national identity, national consciousness. Sometimes ethnicity can also lead to otherization. A Song of Hope, where Udgiru Nonukal keeps hoping and dreaming for her nation, for her, to liberate or to decolonize the minds of her people, of the people that she of the culture that she is part of, and she is reclaiming sovereignty. Sovereignty means independence. She's reclaiming sovereignty through ethnic identity by stressing on what they are capable of, how they are capable of, how she is listing all the dreams and hopes. She is harking back. She is going back to her ethnic roots. A Raisin in the Sun, characters like Lena Younger, who uh, who knows that she is not a white woman and she is not a woman who would just pack up her suitcase and leave her family and just go in a trip. She keeps saying that I ain't a white woman. So she is not emulating. We will get to the debate of feminism later, but she is a woman who is very much attached to her ethnic identity, to her ethnic consciousness. Okay, she dreams of having a home, which everyone dreams. She uh, is a very practical, she is a matriarch in the Younger family. People listen to her. She uh, continues to dream. She goes to she, even after, the threats that they received directly and indirectly, she still continues to dream to live. And she is the one person in the whole family who is a woman, or who is a person who acts. So she goes to the white community, buys a home without telling anyone, because she feels that this is the best decision to do, best decision to have. And then there is another black woman who comes to her in the neighborhood she stays, and she tries to, you know, fill some sense. She tries to convince Lena Younger that not to relocate in the white community because they will never be able to adjust. But then Lena Younger stays motivated and focused. Then Joseph Asagai. This is a very prime example of ethnic identity. Joseph Asagai brings back the ethnic consciousness. He helps Benita to, you know, to get back to her sense of self, to get back to her ethnic identity. Hmm? Loss of ethnic identity in the unnamed narrator. Okay, this is from Surfacing. I have not mentioned the name of the text here. So the last bulleted point, loss of ethnic identity in the unnamed narrator, is from Surfacing. And uh, it is when the unnamed narrator, the female unnamed narrator is, she is going away. She's going away and she has, uh, she has lost her sense of self. She has stayed in America for long years. Okay, her parents have mixed cultural heritage. So she is also at a loss of ethnic identity. Other. So other, this is important, the concept of other. So the concept of other in post-colonial context is influenced by the psychoanalytical theory of Lacan. Okay, so Lacan in his psychoanalytical theory tells that, you know, a sense of self or the ego, okay, the ego id, these are three uh, conscious zones in identity creation. So the ego is formed by people's perception. Your ego, anyone's ego, is formed by people's perception, how people are perceiving you. So the subject attains identity through people's perception, how the people perceives you. So this is again influenced from his idea of the mirror stage. So the other with capital O, okay, he calls it as the great other under whose gaze the subject attains identity. So this theory has been implemented in post-colonial context, and here it is used as when the colonized subject is attaining identity from Western perspective or through Western perspective. In post-colonial theory, the colonizer often represents the dominant other, imposing its norms, language, and values onto the colonized. So the Western can be considered as the dominant other who is, hegemonizing, who is trying to implement their own culture, their own languages onto the colonized. This imposition of the other's worldview leads to processes of othering, where the colonized are constructed as inferior, exotic, or deviant in contrast to the colonizer's norms. So when someone, tries to, the colonizers, when they try to impose their own cultural values, their own ideology onto the other, they are actually starting the process of othering or otherization. And because they are the inferior, they need to adapt to the culture of the colonizers, the dominant culture. So in this way, they are always considered as inferior, as not good enough, uncivilized, barbaric. Okay, some the colonizers are always considered as not up to the mark. Okay, in comparison with the colonizers' ideologies. Okay, so other or othering is there in surfacing. Okay, so it has different layers of othering. The men othering the women, which shows cultural imperialism. Okay, gendered uh, colonization. Then it also implies othering of nature, how, nature is being colonized because of human usage, human development, how Quebec's flora and fauna, the topography is being disturbed by constant or continuous development. Then it is othering is also there in surfacing when the unnamed narrator sees that how people are perceiving her, when the neighbors madame and another and her husband, the friends of her father, of her missing father, so they uh, used to talk to her mother, you know, with a sense of dissociation, with a sense of detachment, and they still talk to her with a sense of detachment. And the unnamed narrator feels a sense of crisis. She is at a crisis. She doesn't know how to react, how to speak. She has forgotten the French language. Okay, so here also there is some othering. Then when she is mocked at by the store people, that is also one of the instances of othering. Diary of a Palestinian Wound. It's a complete case of othering. Okay, how Palestinian Arabs are being otherized. They are considered as the other by the Israelis. Okay, how Western media is perceiving the Arab Palestinians. Hmm? How Western media is sidelining with the Israelis to enable them to form a Jewish home. So they are supporting the Jews. Then the mystic drum, in the mystic drum also, uh, othering is there very much. It is a conventional post-colonial poem, as there is a metaphorical representation of colonization through the woman who stands behind the tree. Hmm? Then a song of hope. So in a song of hope, the constant case of othering is there because of othering Udgiru Nonukal's people, ancestors had faced the impacts of colonization, cultural alienation. Okay, then a raisin in the sun. Here also othering is there. Uh, the whole play is based on othering. How Carl Linder comes to their home and tries to motivate them to not to move into the white community. They are always, the African Americans. They for a very long time and till now, majority of their population, they are economically backward. They had to fight a lot of civil wars to gain equal rights. Okay. And A Raisin in the Sun is based on also on the Jim Crow laws, okay, where the right of property was given to the African Americans, okay, but in a different way. There was equality, but different. Okay. So the Black African Americans, they could go and purchase lands, properties, but at a much higher rate as compared to the properties being sold in the white community. So that's why, uh, Lena Younger feels that if I am getting a home, a house, no matter where it is, in white community or in the black community, at a cheaper rate, why shouldn't I buy my home, my dream house in the white community. So she challenges this, you know, uh, the domination, the white supremacy. She subverts. Subverts means she reverses it. She challenges it. She breaks away from it. So she challenges the white supremacy. Hmm? So all these texts, have one common element again: landscape and the sense of place, sense of language. Okay, so key features of post-colonial texts, as I said, landscape as an important part of indigenous culture. In post-colonial literature, home is a socio-cultural, geopolitical phenomenon which integrates some major issues related to identity and belongingness. So, where do you belong? How do you belong? Where is your home? So, all these questions, they influence post-colonial issues, post-colonial theories, the discourse of post-colonial literature. Hmm. So, uh, language, geography, or topography, the landscape, culture, identity, dress habits, value systems, all these, they form our identity. And when they are taken away, or when they are become hybrid, we land into an ambivalent space and we start to negotiate. Okay. Deep psychic uncertainty of the colonial relation itself. Okay, so the colonized people, they they undergo through a deep psychic uncertainty. So the concept of deep psychic uncertainty, okay, faced by the colonized in relation to colonization was given by Bhabha. Hmm? So Homi Bhabha's this idea you can bring into your answer for surfacing deep psychic uncertainty can be seen in the unnamed narrator, can be seen in um, uh, Walter Lee Younger in A Raisin in the Sun. Okay, next. So this is one of the very important quotes given by Homi Bhabha. I'll pause here a little so that you can read it, and I'll read it along also. When their glances meet, he, the settler, ascertains bitterly, always on the defensive. They want to take our place. It is true, for there is no native who does not dream, at least once a day, of setting himself up in the settler's place. So we can see it in relation to A Raisin in the Sun. Hmm? It is always in relation to the place of the other that colonial desire is articulated. The phantasmic space of possession. It's like a fantasy. The phantasmic space of possession that no one can subject can singly or fixedly occupy, and therefore permits the dream of the inversion of roles. So that is how, roles are inverted, roles are subverted. That is how Lena Younger, Mama Younger, okay, she subverts, she subverts uh, the role of the colonizers. She goes to the white community to build her dream home. Okay, this is another important point. A major feature of post-colonial literatures is the concern with place and displacement. One of the most important features of post-colonial literature, place and displacement, and how because it shows that the legacy of colonization, how it continued to to influence, to shape identity. Hmm? So I'll pause for 10 seconds for you to read the slide. When you are watching the video, you can pause the video and read the slide. So these are further features of post-colonial texts. So at present, post-colonialism also deals with the colonization of environment, nature, and how nature is degrading and changing and depleting because of Anthropocene or anthropogenic activities, and it prioritizes human interests. So humans are the colonizers now, and nature is the colonized. So this kind of post-colonial dimension can be seen in texts like Surfacing and the Mystic Drum, challenging Eurocentric notion, Eurocentric worldview about the East and Asia and Africa. So the colonized uh, people belonging to the colonized culture, colonized nations, they rewrite their history, their experience of colonization. So they challenge the Eurocentric notion. So issues related to race, ethnicity, hybridity, nationality is also articulated by post-colonial texts. Okay. Mutual intimacy with land and body. There is always, in Diary of Palestinian Wound, you see, Darwish is very much attached. His identity, his sense of identity is very much structured by the sense of place, the land, his nation, his country, the landscape. If the landscape is in crisis, if the cartography, the map, cartography means map. So if the cartography is in crisis, identity comes into crisis. Imagine if India's cartography is being uh, changed or somehow disrupted. Our whole cultural identity, every people's cultural identity will land into crisis eventually. Okay, and there will be again, you know, lots of stories and histories and everything. Again, a written discourse, an oral discourse will continue. So so that's why the cartography of a nation is needs to be preserved, uh, needs to be maintained, so that sense of displacement, sense of loss, cultural loss, identity loss, loss of language, loss of ethnicity do not happen. So, othering of the environment and othering of women, this is also a contemporary issue of post colonial literature. So, that's the end of my presentation. I hope this video will help you, this lecture will help you in dealing with questions related to post-colonial literature, how to apply the concepts of post-colonial theories into texts. Thank you so much.